Hey guys, what's up? This is the boy who had 7. So we are going to continue on our Infinity Gauntlet story arc. Today we've got a really important comic. Why? Because today's comic is Silver Surfer number 44 and 45. And in Silver Surfer number 44, this is the first time the world gets to see the Infinity Gauntlet. This is the very first time it is created in the comic books. You get to see that actual glove that Thanos has, that he puts all the Infinity Stones on it. And so this is a really important comic, really important video. Let's get started. So if you guys remember, in the last video, the Silver Surfer realized and figured out that Thanos is not dead. So this comic, Silver Surfer number 44, is called Epiphany. Why Epiphany? Well, because they have the epiphany that Thanos is not dead. So the first thing we see is Silver Surfer. He's on the planet of Titan, and he's talking with Mentor, and he's talking with Eros, who are both Thanos' dad and brother, and he's got Drax the Destroyer here. And they're looking over this coffin, and they're looking at the bones of this creature that they thought was Thanos in the first place. And they realize that the bones have been mechanically enhanced, and that they are not Thanos's, and that they're somebody else's. And so they realize together that Thanos is alive. And so Drax is like, well, let's go, let's get out of here, let's go kill Thanos. And then they realize that Drax no longer has the powers that he used to have, where he could just connect with Thanos and find him wherever he was throughout the universe. So that's the first thing that we see, and they realize there's nothing they can do to find Thanos, and Silver Surfer pretty much says, I'm just going to wait, and we have to be prepared, so when Thanos makes his move, we can counter that move. Okay, so the next thing that we see is Thanos. He is in the universe, and he's starting to play with his powers. He's starting to figure out how to use these gems the right way. And so we see him here with this humongous red sun, and he's like cutting this red sun up into pieces, and he's just messing with reality itself. He's messing with this sun and putting it back together. And here it is, guys. Here is the first time the world gets to see the Infinity Gauntlet itself. That is Thanos holding the gauntlet up. It looks like only 2 of the gems are shining, which to me means those are the 2 gems that he's using to mess with this red sun. And then down below, we see that he says, for mighty Thanos is the possessor of 6 shiny trinkets, the Infinity Gems. And he's got the glove there, and you see all 6 of the gems on him. And then he begins to go into this whole spiel. And he starts to talk to those of us reading the book about the history of these gems. Now, we've gone over that a little bit in the Thanos Quest. We've gone over that a little bit in some of the other Silver Surfer books we've talked about in my previous videos. But here he begins to remind us that there used to be this entity, this being that was all supreme, and he was the only being that pretty much was the universe itself. And he got to a point where he just didn't want to live anymore, and so he decided to just go ahead and die. And so when he dies, Thanos calls it cosmic suicide. So when he dies and kills himself off, the universe is created. And Thanos is talking about how the universe came from his death. And Thanos is really morbid because obviously you guys remember he loves death. I mean, he loves death herself, Mistress Death. I mean, everything that he does is for her. And he's talking about how when this being, the universe, died, from his carcass came the stars and the sky and the planets and the galaxies. And so he's talking about this, and he says that nobody realized that when he died, he really didn't disappear. His body transformed into these 6 Infinity Stones. And so Thanos says, now I control those Infinity Stones, and I am all powerful. And he kind of shows off some of his feats that you guys see here. And the next thing that we know is he's like, I do know one thing. Now that I have all this power and all this knowledge, I'm omnipotent. I am God. But I still realize that the Silver Surfer is the only one who can stop me. Now, this is pretty interesting. Why, guys? Because this is not how the MCU is going to take it. There's no way we're going to see the Silver Surfer in Avengers Infinity War Part 1 or Part 2. They just don't own the rights to that guy. And so how on earth is the story going to unfold in the MCU opposed to how I'm unfolding it here for you guys in these videos? It's really exciting to see these parallels and these differences. And so let's continue with Silver Surfer now because we know we've got him in the comic book. So Thanos says, okay, where he looks through the universe and he finds the Silver Surfer, Mentor, Eros, and Drax the Destroyer all together. And he's like, there they are. I should kill all of those guys. In the blink of an eye, I can make them disappear. But what fun is that with all this power and everything that I have in this gauntlet? What fun is it just to kill them? I want to savor their death. I want to torture them and make sure it makes me happy, and I enjoy having all this omnipotence and all this knowledge and power. So what does he do? He begins to open up this vortex, and Drax all of a sudden's like, I sense something, and he turns around and he sees this hole opening up in space. And Eros and Mentor are like, oh my gosh, what is that? And then the Silver Surfer's board starts getting sucked in, and all of a sudden the Silver Surfer and Drax the Destroyer get sucked in, and Mentor and Eros stay, and they're like, those guys were stronger than us. How did they get sucked in and we didn't? We should have been overcome first. The next thing that you know is that the Silver Surfer and Drax the Destroyer are on this distant planet, and it's just full of death. And they're like, where are we? And all of a sudden Silver Surfer's like, hey, turn around, Drax. And when they turn around, they see Thanos. And Thanos is there in front of them. And then Drax is like, hey, I hate you, Thanos. And he runs at Thanos and dives at him to try to hurt him. And all of a sudden Thanos just, boom. He uses his power to freeze Drax in place. And so Silver Surfer's like, how on earth did you do that? And Thanos is like, well, since the last time we've seen each other, I've been doing a couple things, and I'm pretty strong now. And all I did is I froze time, around his specific being. Time is just frozen where he's at, and so he's stuck there. And the reason I'm able to do this is because I have the power of time. And so now he's gonna start, talking with the Silver Surfer and going through his newfound powers. And the first thing he says is, I have the power of time. So to illustrate this point, he takes them into the past of this planet, back to prehistoric times where they're surrounded by dinosaurs, as you guys see here. Then he takes them to the far future when this planet's about to be destroyed and it's going to collide with its own sun. And he's telling them, I have the power of time. The next thing that we know is they're teleported to New York City. And at the same time that they're in New York City, they are also at this planet, and the Silver Surfer and Drax and Thanos all know this. And the Silver Surfer's like, how are you doing this? And he's like, that's because I have the power of space. I can be anywhere I want to be. I can be all places at once, or I can be nowhere. I have the power of space. So all of a sudden, it looks like Drax is breaking through Thanos' spell, and he's like, Thanos, I will destroy the Silver Surfer. And all of a sudden he dives at the Silver Surfer. Drax starts choking the Silver Surfer. And the Silver Surfer's like, Drax, what are you doing? And Thanos is like, I did this because I possess the power of the soul, and I changed his being to not to hate me, but to hate you. And now he's going to choke you to death. And so now you see Drax just choking the Silver Surfer, and the Silver Surfer's like, looking, and all of a sudden he starts seeing his life flash before his eyes as if he's gonna die, and he starts seeing all of his history and everything that he's gone through in his life. And Thanos is like, yeah, you're seeing all that, aren't you? That's because I'm making you do it, because I also possess the power of the mind. I'm making you see these things. And then all of a sudden Drax is pulled off of him, and the Silver Surfer and Drax look at this picture. They start to distort and to twist all crazy. And you see a lot of this kind of art in the early 90s and throughout the 90s. But you see them twisting, and Thanos is like, yeah, I'm doing that because I possess the power of reality. So finally, the last thing that you see is that Thanos grows humongous. And he grabs the Silver Surfer, and he grabs Drax, and he holds them in his hands. He's like, my little children, you need to learn to be obedient to me. And he tells them, because I have the power of power. I control all the power in the universe, and I can do anything I want with you. So the next thing that happens is, just to be sure that the Silver Surfer knows what's going on, Thanos pulls out his glove and he shows him, look, I now am in possession of all of these things. Do you recognize them? And Silver Surfer's like, the soul gems. And Thanos is like, no, I call them the Infinity Stones. And these Infinity Stones are what gives me this power. And now I'm the ultimate being. And I just wanted to show you all of this before I kill you, so you know who's going to rule the universe for eons and eons and eons. And then it shows pictures of him and Lady Death, Mistress Death, his love. And he pretty much tells the Silver Surfer, yeah, I'm about to kill you. And so the Silver Surfer runs over to him, and he tries to put his arms around the gauntlet and pull it off. And Thanos just punches him down. And so Drax and Silver Surfer attack him, and Thanos just blasts them. And they fall dead in front of Thanos and his might. And so he begins to laugh to himself, and he tells, I am now in possession of all things. I've destroyed the one being that can stop me. I have now become the god of this universe, and there's nobody else that can stop me. And he laughs with himself at his power. And so we see this last panel, and there's somebody here that is actually watching him this whole time, and he pretty much says, you think there's nobody to stop you, but I'm here to stop you. Guys, this is Mephisto. We see him here in Hades. Who's Mephisto? His origins come from Faust's legend of Mephistopheles, who often went by the nickname of Mephisto. He's kind of like this demon-like, devil-like character that we first get to see him in Silver Surfer #3. We find out later in the comic books that he is actually the being who tricked the Ghost Rider Johnny Blaze into signing that contract to become the Ghost Rider. This guy is pretty much like the devil. And so here he is in Hades watching Thanos getting really greedy. And that moves us into Silver Surfer #45. Okay, the first thing I want to mention about this comic book is how much I love the art by Ron Lim on this cover. It is absolutely stunning. Look at Thanos in all his glory, just there, you know, with his arms folded, all powerful. And then you have this demon, the devil, leaning over his shoulder, kind of whispering into his ear. The color scheme, the drawing itself, the whole idea behind the drawing, I just think it's gorgeous. I absolutely love this cover. So there's only a couple things we need to cover in here. It's not going to take long. Here it goes. First thing we see is that Thanos leaves Silver Surfer and Drax, and he decides to go back to his spaceship. And when he gets there, the guy that he left in charge, General Styx, has been gathering together this humongous fleet for Thanos. And Thanos is like, good job. I'm glad you did that. This fleet is going to be my royal guard. And so, I mean, look how huge that fleet is. The next thing that we see is Thanos is like, I sense something. And he teleports down into the lower regions of the ship. And if you guys remember from one of my last videos, we talked about Thanos being at the ship, and Nebula had taken over the ship, and then Thanos resurrected, and Nebula kind of fought him, and Thanos burned her. And then one of her guys that loved her takes her and hides her in the ship, while Thanos finds her, and he finds this guy, and Thanos is like, I knew I sensed something. That's my granddaughter Nebula. And so he gets Nebula. He's like, I have a plan for you now that I have all these gems. And he kind of resurrects her into the state between living and between death, where she's stuck in this state of pain and horror. She can't really think correctly, even though she can't really move correctly. She's just like stuck in between the state of life and death. And she looks like a zombie. I mean, look at her here. And then he blasts the guy that saved her away and says, I don't need any usurpers alive that would try to go against my orders. And so that's one really important thing. I think in this comic book, we have a glimpse into the future and what's going to happen in the story arc. And I don't want to say too much, but the whole story is right here within this comic. It's really cool. So the next thing that we see is Thanos, after he does that, he turns around and Mephisto appears sitting on his throne. And so Mephisto's there and he's like, hello. And Thanos is like, I know you. You're Mephisto. And he's like, oh, I'm surprised you know me. And Thanos is like, I know everything. I have all these bad boys. And Mephisto's like, yeah, you know, I knew about those. And so he begins to kind of talk with Thanos. Thanos is like, what are you doing here? And he's like, you know what? You know, I'm a demon by trade. I knew about the great being who created this universe. I knew about these gems, but, you know, I'm naturally become evil because that being didn't teach us to be good. And so there's one thing I have to stay true to myself, and there's one thing above personal gain that I have to stay true to, and that is ultimate power. And you are ultimate power, and therefore, look, he kneels here and he offers his service. Therefore, I am in your service, and I want to be your slave. I will do anything you want me to do. Well, guys, if you think about demons and the devil, they never tell the truth. So obviously Mephisto has this ulterior motive, okay, to doing this. And Thanos calls it out right away. You know, I don't need some liar like you to be in my presence. And then Mephisto begins to tell him, yes, but I can help you develop your powers. I can teach you how to use your powers even more than you know how. I've been around a lot longer than you have. And so if you can, you realize you can reach out and touch every being's mind in the entire universe, and you can become the universe itself. Why don't you try it? So Thanos begins to reach out, and he feels all the minds of all the people in the universe, and he begins to kind of get greater and stronger and higher, and he starts to go into space, and you see his face here, like he becomes space itself. He becomes the universe. And all of a sudden you see Mephisto like, ha, that idiot fell for this trick. And he runs over to Thanos' body and he pulls off the glove and he sticks the Infinity Gauntlet on. He's like, yes, now I have ultimate power and I'll never fall to a stupid trick like that. And all of a sudden the glove opens and boom, grabs him around the neck and starts to choke him. And Thanos is like, do you think I was that dumb to leave my body alone so that you could take this glove? And look at how huge Thanos grows, and he like literally is pinching Mephisto between his fingers and just choking him. He's like, I'm not that dumb and I'll never do that. And so Mephisto's like, no, I was just testing to see if you were worthy of this glove and all of this power, and I found that you are worthy. You know more you know more than I do. And so Thanos is like, and he's like, Mephisto's like, please don't kill me. Let me be your slave. And Thanos is like, but you're always gonna try to hurt me. And then Mephisto's like, I am, but it's only gonna make you sharper. It's only gonna make you stronger and wiser. And I can never beat you. And so Thanos is like, okay, I think I'll keep you around just for the fun of it, just so I can enjoy my powers every time you kind of try to stop me. And so, I mean, super interesting comic. The last thing that we see is Drax the Destroyer and the Silver Surfer lying on the ground. Well, what does that mean? We thought that they were dead. And so that is it. That is the end of Silver Surfer 44 and 45. We got to see the Gauntlet for the first time ever. Look it, guys. That comic book cost, what, $1 back in the early 90s? Well, right now, Silver Surfer 44, because the movie's out, it's going anywhere from like $40 to $300, $400, $500 on eBay. It's crazy what a good movie will do for a comic book price. It's part of the reason I love comics. You know, every once in a while, a movie comes out. When I heard that these movies were coming out, I went through my comics. I'm like, look at all the stuff that I have. I mean, the price has shot up. It's a little part of the fun of collecting comics. We got to see Mephisto, learn about his character. So now, what's going to happen next? We'll find out in my next video. Thank you for watching. Thank you for all that you do. Please like and subscribe to the channel. I'd love to get a little bit more comments out of these videos. If you guys could let me know what you think, what you liked, what you didn't like, what's going on, what you're excited about in the MCU, what you're excited about and learning about more in the story, I'd really appreciate it. You guys have a great one. I'll talk to you later.